I feel like the person, when they're on their way out, their spirit on their way out, they have this time where they have an opportunity, like one final opportunity to accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. I feel like you have that up until the very last second.
It all starts with a single question asked to an anonymous caller. What do you think happens when we die? And from there, the conversation goes in completely unexpected directions. Some speak with certainty, others with doubt. Some are still trying to make sense of it all. I'm Zach Ansell, and this is When We Die Talks, a podcast about death, meaning, and how that shapes the way we live. This podcast was born from my own fears around death and the need to talk about it. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I'm glad you're here. This episode is supported by Mnemostheny, a project I've been building alongside this podcast. Mnemostheny is a simple way to tell your story in your own voice. It's a guided, audio-first conversation with me where we capture the parts of your life that matter to you, where you came from, the people who shaped you, the seasons that changed you, and the moments you don't want to lose. It's not therapy and it's not a performance. It's just a real conversation that becomes a private audio keepsake you can share with the people you love or keep for yourself. If you want to learn more, you can find it at mnemostheny.com. That's NEMOSENE.com. Hey, welcome back or welcome here if this is your first time. This week we are going back to a call that was recorded a while ago, and I'm glad we're finally here with this one because it's a conversation I think about a lot. This caller has been through significant loss, multiple family members over a relatively short period of time, and then the loss of their spouse, which came in a very traumatic way. And through all of it, their faith has been the one thing that held them together. They're Christian, deeply so, and this conversation goes places that very few calls on the show have gone, into religion, into grief, and into how those two things are almost impossible to separate from each other when you're actually living through loss. I think one of the most profound things about this topic is that the idea of what we believe happens when we die isn't just philosophy. It's comfort. It's how we make sense of where the people we actually love went. And for this caller, that belief is specific. They believe that in the final moments of a person's life, there is one last opportunity, a last window, to accept Jesus Christ. And that belief is what gives them peace about the people they've lost, including their spouse. I do want to give a heads up that this conversation gets into the topic of suicide. If you're not in the headspace for that today, it's okay to save this one for another time or skip it altogether. But as this caller points out, there's still so much stigma around suicide, and that's exactly why these conversations matter. If you're in a place where you're able to hear it, I think it's one worth listening to. Let's get into the call. I hope you enjoy.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. It's going good.
Awesome. Are you excited for this?
Yeah, I actually am.
Good. I know that you had mentioned earlier that you're a little nervous, and hopefully this is just a fun conversation. I know it's a little bit of a weird ask to put out to the world. And so kind of before we get into the big conversation, I do have a couple little questions I'll ask you before. Maybe just briefly, you could let me know why you even wanted to do this conversation.
Well, I have experienced multiple losses probably within the last 6 years.
Okay.
Of significant family members and a spouse. And I feel like each one of them brought on a different form of grief for me. And then with my faith, I just want to kind of tie it in all together because I actually am at peace now with all the loss. And I just wanted to talk about it and also curious to see what this was all about on your behalf.
Awesome. Well, I love that. And I love that you have found peace. And obviously, like I said, now I'm already excited to kind of dive into that stuff, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So maybe we'll kind of backtrack before we get into all of that. So maybe you could, just to kind of get like a rough idea about you, obviously keeping the anonymity and everything, but maybe you could give like a rough idea, like city, state of where you live, and then your favorite book and why.
Okay. So I born and raised and continue to live in El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
Which is on the border, literally on the border of Texas and New Mexico.
Yeah, you're right there. You look over and see it.
Yes. And then also Mexico as well. So we're like a tri-state area. So I live in a pretty unique region.
Absolutely.
So it's my hometown. And my favorite book is The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Ooh, I haven't read it, but it's on my list. I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah. It caught my attention when I first started reading it. I didn't realize so much that it was from the viewpoint of a pet. And so that caught my attention, and I read it in one day. I was that
That's how you know it's a
intrigued
good
with
book.
it. Yes. And then I didn't realize the story behind it. It's kind of like when I go to a movie and don't have any real expectations, and it just turns out to be like this really great thing that I
Yeah.
experienced. And that's how it was with the book.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I stumbled across it, actually, and then that's my favorite book.
I'm excited to add that to the list because I've heard such fantastic things about it. And now I'm going to push it a little bit higher up on my list to read soon. So thank you for that that
Yes.
push as well. I
And
appreciate
I'm going
it.
to tell you, it evokes all of your emotions.
Okay. So prepare myself.
So prepare yourself, because I found myself sobbing in certain sections and I found myself cheering, and it was really an experience.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I can't say that about other books.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a powerful book to be able to do that. And especially, like you said, you read it in a day. So you went through a lot of
Yes.
waves of emotion in the course of like 12 hours or whatever. Maybe not even that long, but it's
Yes.
just, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so, yeah, now we can kind of get into the heart of the conversation, and you can start with, what do you think happens when we die?
Well, I think once our time is up, I feel like there's probably a glimmer or a certain space of time, and I don't even know if there's actually a time frame of what occurs, but I feel like the person, when they're on their way out, their spirit on their way out, they have this time where they have an opportunity, like one final opportunity, to accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. I feel like you have that up until the very last second. So I think that occurs. I don't know how long it really is. I don't know how it would feel to that person. Like, is it just seconds, minutes? Is it hours? Does it turn into days? But I have this opportunity to, one last time, accept Jesus Christ as your Savior and have the opportunity to either say yes or no and enter into heaven, or in condemnation for eternity in hell. That's what I think happens.
Okay.
And that's just based on my spiritual belief.
And is that, just to kind of clarify, is that Catholicism, Christianity? Just curious.
Christianity.
Okay.
Christianity, yes. And then wherever, like if you go into heaven, and I feel like you just enter into this paradise of extreme joy and happiness. Like, I know the Bible says that you'll feel no more earthly suffering, pain, any of those anymore. So I think it's just like a huge jubilee and a wonderful place to be. And you'll get to be whole from whatever, you died from, whether it's an illness, injury, old age. Like, you're just whole and healthy, and then you see your friends and family and be with the Lord for eternity. And in my envision of hell, if you go to hell, it's just pure agony and suffering, like so scary, a place that I wouldn't want to be. And I just think that it is like a 24/7 horror story that will never end.
Which does not sound fun.
No, it doesn't. But I believe I think, people who probably think there's nothing that happens in the afterlife. And once the person dies, they die. Their body, cremated, goes into the ground and burial. But I believe that everybody has spirit, and that's what lives on.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because that has been kind of my position and kind of why I started this project, because I have kind of had this thought or feeling or whatever that nothing happens. And not that you went into like an extreme depiction of hell, but in some ways, nothing is almost a little bit more terrifying to me than your hell, because it's like, then I just don't exist anymore, which that's a really hard thing to wrap my head around. And so that's ultimately why I kind of started this. I love that you said that you have found peace around all this loss that you have. And I think that's the most important thing with anything that anybody believes, is at least having some peace so that it doesn't create fear, anxiety, and all this turmoil. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from with this project and exploring. I'm curious Because it sounds like and I don't want to put any words in your mouth or anything, but it sounds like you had a lot of loss and there was grief and maybe some struggle around that. And it took some time to get to some peace around it. So I'm curious about that process and maybe how your faith played into that and whether it did or didn't affect the way that you think about death. Sorry, that was a lot of
Yeah.
questions. I hope hopefully that wasn't overload.
No, that's fine. No, it wasn't. So I've known of Jesus Christ since I was a little girl. And of course, as a child, you don't really comprehend the totality of what it means to be a Christian and,
Yeah.
to have salvation and eternal life. And then, so you go to church, you do the things because your family does that. And it's not until you get older and more mature that you can appreciate the teachings that you've been taught. And then you yourself can make that decision if that's something you really want to believe or not.
Yeah.
So I've always had that foundation. And so as anybody who goes through life, there's so many ups and downs, positives and negatives. People stray, they come back. Bad decisions are made, good decisions are made. But I want to say that throughout my life, I've had that foundation and always had that ability to lean on God for that comfort during those good times, during the bad times. And I am 51 years old, so I have some good life experience behind me.
Yeah.
And I have, been able to discern more of the Bible and its teachings and all of that and how I can apply it to my life to be a better person and in my faith, using my faith to get through the tough times because I believe it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just something that I've been told. So it's something that I believe. So my whole string of losses that were most condensed together started in 2019 with my Nana. And she was the woman that raised me because I was not raised by my birth mother. So she was like my mom. So I knew she was getting up in age. I knew she had congestive heart failure. Tried my best to reach out to her every day, if not every other day, but we didn't talk every day and she still lived alone. Very independent person. So you have this idea of your elders in your family, like just living forever, like they're going to die, but you don't want to like face that reality.
Totally.
But it was facing me in the face. So I knew the time was coming at some point, but she was still very independent. She still lived by herself, everything. I didn't really have to worry about her in that sense. For some reason, I got a phone call from her, and this was a woman who was born in the 1929 and went through the Depression and all of the stuff that happened in early America.
For sure.
So, yes. And so she's the type of person that clung on to every penny, saved everything that was savable, did not ask for help. She would find a way through it. Like she didn't want to burden me, her daughter. But I would keep up on her, like, make sure you go to your appointments. And she did. I worked full time, so I wasn't able to go with her all the time. So we had another family member take her to her appointment. Well, one day she calls me while I was at work, which was unusual for her to call me during the day when she knew I was working.
Yeah.
And she just told me, she's like, I just want to let you know that I'm okay and I love you. And it was a brief conversation. And then it didn't really dawn on me that that was the last time I was going to talk to her. So a couple of days later, I was off and I hadn't really talked to her since then. And my plan was to contact her on my day off. And I got a phone call from one of the physicians at work that I work with because my Nana's boyfriend, she had a boyfriend, a male friend, he could not get a hold of her on the phone. So he knew where I worked. He didn't have my phone number. So he tracked me down through work. He went to the hospital and everything.
What a good boyfriend.
And I got the phone. Yes. And he was very concerned.
We all
her.
deserve that in our late in life, don't we?
Yes. And I was told that he was there looking for me because he couldn't get a hold of Nana. So, of course, that made me very anxious. So I myself tried to call her. She didn't answer. So eventually me and my husband just got in the car and started driving to her house. And I just knew she was already gone.
Yeah.
I just kept praying to Jesus to please just give me some sense of peace to know that she's okay, whatever his will was. And of course, when we got there, we found her. She passed away at home.
Mm.
So it was pretty traumatic for me
Yeah.
because she was my mom. I wasn't expecting her. She was down on the floor, crumpled because she fell. I honestly think that there's evidence that she got up that morning, made herself a cup of coffee, got dressed because the coffee was on the nightstand.
Mm.
And I think she just got off the bed to walk out of the bedroom. And I think she just went instantaneously. So that was my first major loss, which was really hard for me because
Yeah.
she raised me since I was 6.
Yeah, that's a big loss.
So, I mean, like I said, I was expecting it, but I wasn't expecting it. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of like, all of a sudden, tragically, she's gone, but not too unexpected because she was 89 years old. Like, she's elderly.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
still
was
a
my
surprise.
first loss. And that happened in April. No, it happened in February of 2019. So I have last pictures of her from 2018 from my wedding because I had gotten married. And so I just was not realizing at the time that these were the last moments that I had with her captured on film or
Yeah.
the last phone call. And so that was the first loss. And then almost a year later, January of 2020, my grandmother passed away. And she was bedridden at home. She was also 89 years old. She was immobile, and my mom took care of her all the time. And so we knew she was deteriorating. We knew her time was coming. But she was not a very happy person. Like, she was Great Depression, and she turned mean. I guess it's expected. Like, who wants to live like that? But it got to a point when we knew that she was put on hospice. Like, we were ready for her. Like, not that we wanted her to die.
Yeah.
We just didn't want her to be like suffering anymore.
Yeah.
So
Which
whenever
is
the time
perfectly
came,
reasonable.
so we were like relieved.
Yeah.
It was a sense of relief
Yeah.
when she passed. But with her, I was able to be with her at that moment. And she took like this one last breath, and she started like moving her tongue like if she was tasting something.
Mm.
And right then and there, I just told myself, like, I just felt like she was received in heaven and she got to taste the heavenly milk and honey of heaven.
Mm.
And that gave me so much peace. Of course, sad because she's gone.
Yeah.
But I didn't mourn her like a hurtful mourn like I had for my Nana, because I just was not expecting my Nana to go the way she did.
Yeah. And it was a different relationship to some extent too, right?
Yes, it was. And then in March, so all these deaths happened the first 3 months of the year. So March of 2021, and this was the hardest one. It was my husband. He took his life.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And so nobody was expecting it. The whole situation was just terrible. And the build up to it and everything. And I actually heard the gunshot over a phone call as I'm trying to drive to his parents' house, because that's where he had gone. And his 2 sisters and his mom and I are on a party line call on our vehicles and at the house. So I heard everything.
That's so hard. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So tragic and traumatizing. So I never made it to his parents' house. Instead, I met him and the ambulance at the hospital that they were taking him to, and I'm glad I never made it to his parents' house for the mere fact that it turned into like an investigation scene. They didn't let anybody leave the house. So I was able to be with him at the hospital. Otherwise, I would have totally missed being there with him. I was the only one to be there with him. And I had some hope because they took him to ICU after the emergency room. And I had hope that, well, maybe, we'll overcome this. Maybe it's not as severe as he intended it to be.
Yeah.
And it was during COVID. So it was really hard.
Right at the start of COVID.
Yeah.
Or I guess a year in. Yeah. Yeah.
So I couldn't be with him in the ER. I don't think I would have if they even let me. And I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah.
They got him up to the ICU and they called me. Friends and family had already started showing up, so I had their support, and everybody was just in shock. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe he'll pull through because he's in the ICU.
Yeah.
He didn't expire in the ED because I was waiting for them to come out and tell me that he passed. And so I got up to the ICU. I was the only one who could go up there because of the restriction. And immediately they took me to a family room, and the trauma doctor was there. And I just knew that what he was going to tell me. So he came in and he told me that the injury is devastating and that he will succumb to his injury. And I am a nurse practitioner, so I understand. And we had already discussed, my husband and I had already discussed our wishes at any point if something was to ever happen to us, that we didn't want to be continued on life support if there was no hope of ever returning back to my previous self.
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad that you had that conversation.
Right. You know what? I think back and I had no idea that my husband was thinking these things.
Yeah.
I knew he had severe depression, PTSD, on and off medication treatment. It's really difficult for men to get the help that they really need and stay on it. So I knew he was in a dark place for like 6 months prior, but I had no idea that he was thinking of ending it.
Yeah.
But his sisters did, and his mother did, and nobody told me. So that was like a knife in the back, like, because I told him if I had any inkling that this was going to happen, of course, as a spouse, you're going to try your best to get him help and see if this would pass. But my husband and I had talked about, and it wasn't even about suicide. It was like car accident or whatever.
Yeah, just regular.
So
I mean, not regular, but
want,
like a regular conversation about, hey, someday, something might happen, which I think is, again, kind of going back to what I'm glad that you at least had that conversation, because I think there's a lot of people that don't even have that conversation. And so then something does happen and it could be a car crash. And then it's like, oh yeah, I don't know what they wanted. So I'm glad that you at least had that conversation. I'm not trying to say that changes anything about how traumatic and hard this was for you.
And I'm very grateful that we had these discussions, because I knew what I had to do for him versus like his parents. God bless them. They left everything in my hands to deal with the medical part and the funeral part. They respected my role as his wife. So I didn't have to deal a lot with like family members saying, no, you've got to continue doing everything and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I knew what his plan was. When I think back to like a year prior, I'm very curious to find out whenever I go to heaven and talk to him again. I think he was planning this for a while, because we actually even purchased and paid in full our funeral arrangements. So we had that done. I mean, we're young people.
Yeah.
Like, who really does that? Nobody.
Yeah.
But we had that planned. We had the discussion about life and death in a hospital. And then for Christmas, his last Christmas, he gave me a dog because I had a dog that I had lost. But he knew I wanted another dog, but I didn't get one myself because I assumed 2 dogs for my daughter because she went into the military. And I told him, I'm not going to get another dog. I don't need another dog. And he got me my own dog. And that's the absolute last gift I ever received for him. So he's very precious to me.
What kind of dog?
But I know.
Sorry, I love dogs.
It's a poodle mix. It's a poodle mix. I even did his DNA.
Oh, amazing.
He's got a crazy DNA mixture, but my husband gave me this dog. I think he knew what he was planning. He didn't want me to be absolutely alone because he had children that were my stepkids, teenagers. And of course, after a tragedy like this happens, families get fractured and, it just turns really ugly. So I literally, after he passed away, I literally was in my home by myself the next day. The kids went with their family, which is fine. But I think he just knew that. But his passing was the hardest to deal with because I really felt like we both felt like we were God's gift to each other. It was his third marriage, my second. Later in life, just one of those things that happened. And I had even told him, I wish I met you when I was younger. And he's like, oh, no, I would have treated you like a dirty dish towel. And I would never want to do that to you. So our timing was perfect for meeting and marrying. But the tragedy of him taking his life was unspeakable. I didn't know up from down. I was totally crushed.
Understandably
my world
so.
was ripped. And I've never, ever, ever felt such pain.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he was my person and it was so unexpected versus my elderly grandma and my Nana, like it's kind of expected.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, even with your
different.
Nana, that it was unexpected in a way, but there was still the idea around it that, she was 89. And so it's like, it's going to happen. This was very sudden, shocking, and traumatic, which is death is hard to deal with on its own and the grief around it. But when it's traumatic, and that's not from personal experience, I don't personally have that experience, but from doing this and talking to people, it's a different kind of grief. It's a different kind of emotions that you're dealing with because it's just.
Yes. And he was 46 when this happened. So we were very young.
Yeah.
And actually he was so important to me. He is the one that actually brought me closer to Jesus, building up my faith because he was deeply Christian. We weren't religious because we feel there's a difference between religion and your relationship with God. So we've primarily focused on our relationship with God and not religion. So for him to take his life, it's through all of these moral and ethical questions that I had that I wasn't going to get answers. And then his parents are also Christian, deeply Christian as well. And I'm like, you're told, at least when you're younger, suicide is a sin and you're going to go to hell, right? You think, oh my God, is my person, whether it's friend, family, or whoever, when they die by suicide, where are they going to go? But that's where I feel like in those last moments, in those last twinkling moments of somebody's life, whether they're unconscious or conscious, you have that one last opportunity to be forgiven because Jesus forgives everybody. It doesn't matter what you've done. And so I just feel like truly feel that my husband's in heaven because of his faith and his relationship that he had with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But he, as a human, had very dark oppression over him. I'm not saying he was possessed.
Yeah.
But he had had to been a demonic oppression for him to believe that his life was not worthwhile, and he did this. So I had a lot of questions of faith. Where is he? Where is he going? Is he forgiven? And then just like discerning what I know, I just feel those last few moments, every single person, no matter who you are, what you've done, what you're dying of, if you have not already accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior, you have that one last opportunity.
I want to just say, thank you for sharing that, to a complete stranger.
It's easier now. I'll tell you, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier now. It's been 4.5 years.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to even say the word suicide.
I'm sure.
And I do not say he committed suicide.
Yeah.
He died by suicide.
Yeah. I feel like it's a much more respectful way of talking about it. But yeah, I can imagine that the word would not be something that you'd want to say for a very long time.
And there's such a lot of negative connotation to it, even still today.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
word suicide, because of society's values and beliefs. And I know mental health is getting a lot more recognition now, which is great, but still that connotation is there. And as a widow, nobody wants to be a widow. We all know we're going to be widows if you marry, right? At some point in your life, you're going to be a widow.
Yeah.
But most people think it's not until I'm going to be in my silver years.
Yeah.
But this happened to us in our 40s. And so I was not expecting to be. I was expecting to grow old with this man. And he's gone.
Yeah.
And now I am a widow. And it's not like I'm a widow from a car accident or a widow because he had cancer. I'm a widow because he chose to do this.
I'm curious.
I'm very grateful.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm very grateful that I had such great friends and colleagues and coworkers that they did not pry. So I never had to answer to
Yeah.
how he died. I'm sure my closest friends have told others, but I never had to answer to that. And I'm very grateful.
I'm glad
And
that you had that too.
never felt judged by his actions, because so often I think survivors of suicide are judged by the actions of the person who died. And that's not who that person was.
Yeah.
They were a great person all around. It's just this one instant that now they're not here.
Yeah. And completely not fair to get judged on that. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you had that support system to be there for you and not pressure you and push you, and also that you didn't feel this like external judgment or anything, because you didn't need any more on your plate. You had plenty. I am a little bit curious about when I talk to people who have lost people. I'm always kind of curious, like, do you still feel like you have a connection with your husband? Do you feel like you see signs? And maybe it's not signs, maybe it's just, he's still in my heart, but I'm curious maybe, of that aspect of things too. Like, is there a connection to heaven in your mind? Is there a way to connect to that, to the other side?
Are you asking like if I feel his presence around me?
Yeah. I think that's a way of putting it.
So in the first maybe couple weeks, I think because I longed for him so terribly bad. Your mind's a strong thing, and I think it causes you to see things, to maybe try to not put a Band-Aid on it, but to make you feel at peace.
Yeah.
That they're still around. So I want to say there was only a couple times where I felt something of him. Of course, now I don't. And I rarely dream of anybody that I've lost. Probably the first 4 months, maybe the first 6 months, I had very vivid dreams with him. But it was never him. It was just his presence.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I never saw his physical being. It was just his presence, him. But it wasn't like comforting dreams. It was dreams of him trying to run away from me, and he didn't want to be found. And so I don't know what that meant. I just felt like maybe it was just, I don't know if there's some level of shame that he had that he now felt, but he never wanted to be found in my dreams. And if I found him, he never wanted to come back home to me. I don't know what all that means.
Yeah.
But
I'm no dream expert.
Physical reality. Yeah. And in the physical reality of my world, no, I only felt him a couple times.
Yeah.
I do not believe that spirits stay behind. They either go to heaven or they go to hell. I don't feel like the passing of my people, that their spirits are still bound here on earth. And I do not think that once you go to heaven that God allows them to come back to, their loved ones here on earth. I think God gives us signs. It's not them, but God will give us signs like
interesting.
They're okay, or they're happy now, or they're at peace, but not from that person.
Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it. And I think just in general, I'm just, again, very grateful to you for being willing to share all of that. I mean, that is some heavy stuff. Is that your dog?
Yeah, and they're outside. I have a pit bull, and that's calling the neighbor from next door because they get treats. And
Smart
it's every
dogs.
evening. Yes. So her and my little one I know they're standing by the rock wall and they're calling my neighbors.
Hey, snack time. I love that.
Yes. That's what they do every evening.
Like clockwork. Well, yeah, I just wanted to, again, reiterate a lot of gratitude for being willing to share all of that. And, again, to talk to a stranger and share your beliefs. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I'm so glad that we were able to do this. Is there anything else you want to say? And you don't have to, but sometimes people are like, oh, I have one last thing that I want everybody to know, or I want to get across. And if you don't, it's totally fine. But I always want to make sure I leave some space for it.
Yeah. And so because of my faith in Jesus Christ and our ability, I truly believe that when I die, I am going to heaven just because of my relationship and my faith and asking him as my savior. So that's all I had to do was believe.
Yeah.
And ask him into my heart. So I feel that when it's my time, I'm going to go to heaven. I feel that I still have to answer to my life,
Yeah.
Before him. But I want to say that when it's my time, I'll be ready and not fearful.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't want to die anytime soon. I still feel how I have a long life to live.
Totally.
But that's just what I feel. And so I have already like a sense of peace for myself in regards to my own life and death. But that's what I think happens when people die.
Yeah. And I think that's perfect and beautiful and a great place to end the call. But yeah, again, thank you so much. I'm glad that you came across this and were willing to jump on the phone. And yeah, we'll definitely have to stay in touch. And yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think we underestimate how much of what we believe happens when we die is really about the people we've already lost. It's not just about our own ending. It's about where they went to and whether we'll see them again. And this caller has an answer that helps bring them comfort. And in my mind, that's kind of all that matters. It's always really interesting to come back to a call I've been sitting on for a while. I don't remember all the tiny details, but I do generally remember what we spoke about. But when I listen back to this one, I can hear how much has changed. Not in the project, not in the calls, but in how I'm viewing the whole thing. What I've learned is this has way less to do with the question of what happens when we die than I thought. That question is just a lens. What this is really about is the people who pick up the phone and decide to be honest with a stranger about the things they've experienced in their life, and are often some of the hardest things to say out loud. And so it's nice to go back, revisit these older calls, and see how much we can change in a relatively short amount of time. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next Tuesday. Thanks for listening to this episode of When We Die Talks. These conversations don't offer answers, but they do open space to reflect, to feel less alone, and maybe to see things a little bit differently than before. If you'd like to explore your own beliefs out loud, you can apply to be an anonymous caller at whenwedietalks.com. And if a full call feels like too much, the voicemail is always open. Leave a message at 971-328-0864 and share whatever death has stirred in your life. Listener support truly helps keep this project going. If you'd like to support the podcast, you'll find a link in the show notes. And as always, please like, share, and follow. Every bit makes a difference. Until next time, have a good life.